is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's fired. He throws. It is.
For the second week in a row, we are talking football here on the Past Our Prime podcast. Last week it was Calvin Hill on the cover, and this week a former Heisman Trophy who went on to play 10 seasons in the NFL, including the QB of the first season in Tampa Bay. I'm talking the old head ball coach himself, Steve Spurrier, on the cover. Welcome to Past Our Prime. Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman here with me, Scott Johnston. And guys, people loved to hate Steve Spurrier. And as the coach of the Gators and the Gamecocks, he ate it up. In fact, just this past week, there was an article on ESPN. Now, this guy, keep in mind, has been out of football for quite some time. and they had a list of the top 10 villains in college football history. And who was number one? You got it. Old ball coach himself, Steve Spurrier. Bill,
he just had that look on his face, man.
What was it that people didn't like about him?
Well, when he coached to win, and he coached to score a zillion points. I'll just give you a few stats here. From 94 to 97, his Florida teams scored over 50 points 18 times. Not many. I mean, there was 70s and 80s. Let me give you an example. So in 1997, Florida is leading Central Michigan 56-3 at the half. You'd figure you got the game wrapped up, right? Oh, no. They opened up the third quarter by throwing a touchdown pass. They would go on to win 82-6. And only 8 teams over the past 40 years have scored more points. So Steve Spurrier just rubbed it in and ran it up. I love that style of play.
Hey, they scored 56 in the first half and only 26 in the second half. So they did
suck.
They did take it off.
Throwing the ball. Come on.
Mark, I think of Spurrier as a coach, but he had a pretty good college career as a QB at Florida.
He was. You know what's really funny? In high school, he played, in addition to football, baseball and basketball. And people thought he was the best at basketball, and I think his dad thought he was best at baseball, but he wanted to play football, and that's what happened. And it turned out to be a good choice. Yeah, but the University of Florida, I mean, he won the Heisman in 1966. I mean, you just don't get any better than that. And I believe in 65, his junior, he finished 9th in the Heisman. So was just really an elite quarterback. And then when he got to the pros, he got drafted by the Niners, and he was supposed to be John Brody's replacement. But he kind of never really replaced Brody, except for one stretch, I think, in the 72 season.
Billy, to me, college football was at its best when Spurrier was around doing his thing. I know he was the villain that everyone loved to hate, but I loved him.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Because if you just look back and you take your time and you go back during the 90s, Steve Spurrier made football fun. What was he, 113-27 in 12 years, and he got one title. But I think what people forget is he's the winningest coach in Florida history. That's pretty obvious, right? He's also the winningest coach in South Carolina history as well. Steve Spurrier knew how to coach. Yeah, he pissed people off because, Scott, I think you mentioned it earlier before we actually got on, that back in the day, the more points you scored, the better you looked to the pollsters.
Yep. He was the first Heisman Trophy winner to coach a Heisman Trophy winner, Danny Werfel. And everywhere he went, he put his imprint on the offense. That team was going to score points. He was pretty much an offensive genius. So we'll have more about him in a little bit when we talk with Dewey Selmon, a teammate of his in this first year in Tampa Bay. Those Buccaneers had a rough start of it. They go 0-14 in 1976, but Spurrier was the QB for much of those games. And like I said, we'll talk with a teammate of his in just a bit, Dewey Selmon, the other half of one of the greatest sibling duos of all time. His brother Leroy and him played at Oklahoma along with Lucius. later part of that gritty 76 Tampa Bay Buccaneers expansion team. He'll be joining us in just a little bit. All right, let's get to it. The scorecard. Billy, Casey Stengel, what's he talking about?
Well, it's going to take a second, but I'll try to get through it here. We all remember Joe Frazier when he managed the Mets? He wasn't very good. He basically managed them for just over 200 games in the 70s. 1976, though, he was making people remember Casey Stengel, who lost more than 400 games when he managed the Mets back in the early 60s. Now, how's that, you ask? Well, one Friday night, the Mets are playing the Phillies. Joe Frazier, manager, walks by the rival dugout and asks Philly coach Billy DeMars, "Is Underwood going today?" DeMars says, "Yeah, he is starting for Philly." And then Frazier looks at the guy and goes, he's a right-hander, right? They said, "No, he's left-handed." And he's wondering where Frazier's mind was because Underwood had just faced the Mets 5 days earlier. Now you're talking confusion. Then we bring in Stengel. Stengel's confusion was even worse. One day, Joe Pignataro, who was a reserve catcher and the Mets coach, remembers an exchange with Stengel after being traded to the Mets by San Francisco in 1 year. The bullpen phone rings, and Pignataro answers, and Stengel goes, "Tell Blanchard to come to the dugout." "Blanchard," Pignataro replied, "he's with the Yankees. You want me to send him across the river to go get him?" So Stengel got really mad, and so he wouldn't talk to Pignataro unless it was from the dugout on the bullpen phone. So he calls Pignataro to get Nelson up one day. Pignataro looked around and said, "There's nobody in the bullpen with that first or last name of Nelson." So instead of getting Stengel more mad at him, Pignataro gets up in the bullpen and goes, "Hey, Nelson!" Reliever Bob Miller got to his feet and started warming up because Miller knew Stengel always called him Nelson. And why did Stengel call him Nelson? Miller had no idea. Neither did Stengel. But I just thought, think that you're calling for a guy, he's not on the team, and then you're calling for a guy that you don't even know his name.
Right. Get me Blanchard. Blanchard's, Williams.
Exactly. How fun, just get me him. He's on the Yankees.
That's great.
Yeah.
I got one. WTA President Chris Evert found herself in an awkward spot. The same week she advocated for equal Wimbledon prize money, she also said Dr. Renee Richards, a transgender woman and former male tennis player, should take a chromosome test before competing on the women's tour. After Richards insisted on her right to play and hired a lawyer, the USTA required all 184 women entered in the U.S. Open to take the test. SI is openly skeptical of Richards, questioning her motives and whether a win against top women would even be legitimate. And of course, this is 50 years ago, and just last month, in July, the WTA announced a major overhaul of its eligibility rules, replacing its prior testosterone-based standard with a mandatory one-time genetic screening for the SRY gene for all players. Basically, you have to prove that you're female, and you can't just say it's because you feel like a female. So we've been dealing with this kind of stuff for, people think this is something that's new, but goes back 50 years, and I'm sure Chris Evert back then had to be thinking like, what the heck? So some things never change.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that Renee Richards story. It was really big, and it was groundbreaking 50 years ago. I mean, now you have a big push for trans rights, but back then, 50 years ago, when she went over and became a woman. I mean, she was groundbreaking. There was never stuff like this. You never talked about that.
They said it.
They said it, Mark. Lavelle Edwards, what'd he say?
Well, famous BYU head coach, remember him well, noting that he had 20 Mormon missionaries on his squad. He said, "If we don't win our first few games, we might start looking for some hellraisers."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fast
not only
forward
that.
a couple years to Jim McMahon, so that's exactly what they did.
Well, yeah, when he says hellraisers, he means guys that'll actually drink a Coca-Cola or, stay up past 10 p.m., those hellraisers.
Billy, Bob Lemon, Hall of Famer.
That's right, Bob Lemon at his induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame. He said, I had my bad days on the field, but I didn't take them home with me. I left them in a bar along the way. Sorry, that was my drunken voice.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, you turned into
Get
Foster
out
Brooks.
of here. Give me another one.
He would have been perfect for Lavelle Edwards. Swinging in the rain, the 1976 PGA Championship at Congressional was engulfed in chaos with repeated lightning delays, a suspended round, and a Monday finish that rivaled that year's Republican convention. For how long it dragged on, the final round featured 6 different leaders and dramatic collapses, Billy, from veteran contenders.
Yeah, I'm going to start. Dave Stockton ended up winning it at 1 over, but Charles Coody was the guy that caught my eye. This guy led by 2 strokes after 3 rounds. He finished 4 over, but this wasn't Coody's only time at the top where he sort of blew it. He ended up winning he won the 1971 Masters, but he always had trouble closing on the course. Now, in the words of Frank Beard, one of his contemporaries, he said, Charlie's one of the better shot makers, but he tries hard not to win. Coody had the lead in the 1969 Masters, but the last 3 holes, he bogey to tie for 5th place. So I thought, man, Charles Coody, man.
He needs Lanny Basham.
He does. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Coody always, everything of the word Coody, that's what girls had when I was about 8.
For sure.
Ew, Bill's got cooties. Stay away from him.
Yeah, I got cooties. But when I read that, sometimes the stories I like of these guys like this, Charles Coody, you look at it, obviously the course is very, very tough. And you think, you're up by, God, you got this. You're up by 2. All you have to do is, stay focused, get par, you win. And just falling apart.
So Stockton's even par 70 gave him a 2 over par 281 total. He edges Raymond Floyd and Don January, who finished tied at 282. Mark, you liked January's pants.
I sure did. They don't do it anymore. These are like red plaid pants. You don't see golfers today on the tour wearing those plaid pants. But they were popular back then. Lots of people had them. It's just, oh my God. What was that movie, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid? Well,
yes.
Fashionable golfers don't wear plaid anymore.
If we ever go video, we got to do a plaid day.
Oh, that would be great. That would be so awesome.
Past our plaid. Come
There
on.
we go. Yeah. They're all they're all the same. They're robots now. They all look the same. They all dress the same. Of course, Payne Stewart was famous for how he looked on the course, but it'd be great if there was someone that had a little bit of oomph.
Little
that
flair.
brought it to the game. Little flair.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. No one does. Except the guy in the Marlins, wherever they got his first ever strikeout, or the Brewers.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, Don for the Mets.
Yeah, it's that match, yeah. He was
Everything comes back in style. So maybe one day plaid will be really popular. I mean, it's popular in Scotland still, so why not?
Yeah.
If he was wearing a kilt, he'd probably get away with it more.
A feat of Olympian proportions, John Neighbor capped a stellar post-Olympic stretch by winning 2 Grand Slams at the AAU Championships with times in the 100 and 200 backstroke, slightly off his Montreal world records, but still dominant. The tenor of the Olympics would have changed big time if this other guy from South Africa, Bill, had been allowed to compete.
Yeah, Jonty Skinner. And Mark knows more about this than me, but he was banned because of the apartheid policy in South Africa. But this man was a true winner. He gets in the 100-meter freestyle at the AAU tournament after the Olympics. His time in the 100 freestyle, 49.44. That beats the world record set by Montgomery just a week prior. Who knows what would have happened in the Olympics? You can't go back. But Jonty Skinner was an incredible swimmer that really just didn't get the chance because of his country's policies.
And Jonty tried to get his U.S. citizenship. He tried really hard, but couldn't. And he swam at the University of Alabama. And then I think eventually he did get it, but he just couldn't get into the 76 games. And he set the world record a few weeks after the Olympics. It would have been just a great 100-meter freestyle to watch him going against, was it Tim Montgomery or his past guest?
Yeah.
That would have been an awesome fight.
But also, if you just watch Lethal Weapon 2, it'll explain to you everything about the
that's right.
South African apartheid. Yes. That's all it's about.
Probably the
And
worst lethal movie.
how you get diplomatic immunity.
Thank you.
No,
It's revoked.
That was the worst Lethal Weapon film. I mean, the one with Jet
Not
Li
a
was
chance. That's what is Patsy Kensit in that movie? You
Right.
rethink what you're saying there, Smokey.
And you had Joe Pesci getting screwed in the drive-thru.
Yes, because that's what happens when you go through the drive-thru. Leo gets. Whatever you need, Leo gets.
Right.
Yeah.
A 3-hour time difference. This is what John McKay, coach of the NFL's new Tampa Bay team after 16 years at USC, says when asked to compare pro football to the college game. Witty, this McKay, and already a winner after leaving USC for a 5-year, $2 million contract. The expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers get their first win ever. Didn't count, it was in August. A 17-3 upset. Yes, an upset in exhibition football
Preseason.
of Atlanta, and confidently dismissed doubts about winning early as an expansion team, joking he'd beat the Steelers' 41-year wait for a championship. Bill, Tampa was horrible, but McKay said, give us some time. It won't take him long to turn them into a competitive team.
No, he had said, you give me 3 years and we can be challengers. They made the playoffs in 4. Then they made the playoffs 2 of the next 3 years after that. So John McKay was obviously was just a great coach in college, and I think he was as good. He was very good in the pros as well.
Despite naming newly acquired, I think their first trade ever, right, was acquiring the guy on the cover this week, Steve Spurrier, his starting quarterback after failed trade attempts for others. They tried to get Pat Hayden. They tried to get the Steelers' Terry Hanratty. McKay found Spurrier adapted well on the fly, even improvising through plays McKay accidentally called that weren't in Tampa's playbook. So that's always difficult. We're going to run the guess 5 XY double wide out on 3, and everyone's going, what the hell is he talking about?
And then Steve Spurrier would pull it off. Whatever he did at the line, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So Spurrier completes 11 of 19 passes for 147 yards and a touchdown. But, Mark, this was a historically bad offense.
Oh, my God. So it took them 3 games just to score points. It took them 4 games to score their first touchdown. That is really, really bad. Though they did play some close games that year. There were a couple games that they had a chance to win. That's a really bad offensive team, and no wonder they couldn't win a game that year.
And what? They go 0-14 this year, and I think the next year they start 0-12.
And just 3 years later to go from this team that can't win a game to go to the NFC Championship game and come within 10 points of going to a Super Bowl is nuts.
McKay leaned heavily on USC ties, including bringing his son in, J.K. McKay, as one of their top receivers, which did not go well with Steve Spurrier. Also, the number 1 overall pick, Dewey Selmon, out of Oklahoma, and their second-round pick, Dewey Selmon, his brother. Part of a legendary football family out of Oklahoma, he anchored the defensive line as an All-American alongside his brother Leroy, then joined him again on the ground floor of the NFL's Tampa Bay Buccaneers expansion team. That's the football background of one Dewey Selmon, but how about this? He earned a PhD in philosophy, had a successful oil and gas consulting career, ran his own construction business, and has made multiple trips to West Africa building schools for orphanages, all while raising 4 children who went on to found their own nonprofit. Yeah, he's done a little bit of everything, and he's done it all very, very well. Please welcome Dewey Selmon to Past Our Prime. Hey, Dewey, thanks for coming on with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on.
One of the reasons we wanted to reach out to you, Dewey, was because Steve Spurrier is on the cover of the August 23rd, 1976 issue as he's coming to Tampa Bay to be the quarterback for the expansion Buccaneers. He's your starting quarterback that year. What was he like as a leader and teammate during such a difficult season for you guys?
Steve Spurrier was a blessing to Tampa and the whole the team and also for the whole community. Steve being a Heisman Trophy winner and his already accolades as being a leader on a football field, he brought it back to Tampa, and he injected that inside the locker room, and it was definitely a step up for us. Everybody looked up to him, and I was very happy to just be in his company, just to call him a teammate. And so I give a lot of props and a lot of credit to Steve Spurrier for what he accomplished as a player, as a coach, and as a person.
You and Leroy were the first two picks in Tampa Bay franchise history. What did it feel like knowing you were literally building an NFL team from scratch together with your brother?
It was a lot of mixed emotions. One, we were not completely in the dark about this whole idea, and we knew going in and say, well, it's brand new, yeah, and that's exciting. But then secondly, oh my gosh, you got to play the Raiders and the Cowboys and the Steelers and the Patriots. Those guys are good. They got big name players. And we're going to be a bunch of new guys out there, and we're going to go and just jump all over them. We said, well, do the math. That may not work out that way. And but here's the most exciting thing about going to Tampa. One, it was new. And a lot of times you take your lumps, so you take your chances on something new. But it's exciting at that point. I got to play for Coach John McKay, and there was a new teammates that I heard about that came in to Tampa, and then secondly, foremost, on the day of the draft, Dewey Selmon, we knew was going to be the first player picked by Tampa in that year in the NFL draft. I'm sitting in my room back here in Oklahoma, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go probably to Seattle. That was the big rumor. Anyway, my phone rings, and it's not Seattle. It's Leroy. Leroy called and said, hey, dude, guess what? They want to make the second pick, and they want to see if you want to come with me to be on this expansion team in Tampa. And here's what Leroy was thinking. He was saying, Dewey, you can't hold out. You can't be picked up by one of the more established teams I know. If you come with me to Tampa, it's going to be kind of hot and crazy. So what do you think? I just jumped up crazy and sat around the room and said, heck, fire, I'm coming to Tampa with you. We're going to have some fun. And so that was the most fascinating day for the start of my NFL career. It was the opening invite to come to Tampa was not by a Tampa official, Ron Wolfhard. Coach McKay, was Leroy who called. And that set the pattern. And for the 6 years in Tampa, we had lots of fun.
So explain, here you are, you're at Oklahoma where you never lose a game, and then you go to Tampa Bay where you never win a game. What kind of adjustment mentally did you have to go through?
It was a week by week learning process, and sometimes it was day by day. You're right. We left Oklahoma and stuff, and we hadn't lost. We lost a couple of games in my whole career at OU, and tied one against the Trojans. But when you go from that environment of winning, and winning has its own set of pressures, if you're at the top, there's so much pressure because everybody's after you. And so I learned that part of it. And after 4 years, I was tired. I was physically and emotionally tired because of just having to stay at the top. It takes a whole lot of energy and to stay there. But in contrast to that, though, by fate, I go to Tampa, and you're right. For 2 straight years, you lose, and you're having to adjust now to a losing environment where you're on the other side of the coin. And what do? You learn so much about yourself about your teammates, about your community, about the game of football. You learn a lot about fortitude, about character of yourself, about anybody can on the top you can win and you can celebrate and be happy, but can you do it if you're losing? If you know you're going to play that game and your odds of winning are not that good, can you still go out and perform? And when the game is over, and you put it away, prepare for the next team. Those things learned down in Tampa. Mm-hmm. Those things built me and Leroy closer as brothers, that we were so close that we talked about everything. Teammates that loved each other. You can love each other as winners. I'll tell you what, if you're losing and you're getting beat every weekend, the only person you got who's going to accept you and love you is your teammate. He's going to look at you and say, hey, look, I appreciate you. I'll look at you as a loser. Look at you as my teammate and my friend, and I love you for that. That's what I learned. That, I don't know, I've thought about that question a lot. I wouldn't trade in my 2 years of losing in Tampa. I wouldn't trade those away because they taught me so much and I learned so much. I appreciated what I was doing, and it made me a stronger person emotionally, physically, and mentally.
You know, my question too would be is how much easier was the process having your brother there to go from that winless season to 3 years later, the NFC title game, to go through that process with your brother?
Family makes everything easier, and that's a blessing from God. Community and fans and teammates makes everything easier. I was blessed to have all those. I had family and Leroy and the rest of my family, wife and kids. I had coaches who I grew to love. I had a community that really stood by us during those losing years. And when you sum it all up, out of the ashes, out of the turmoil, you can find those great moments that really highlight, what sports about and what life's about. And I saw it there in Tampa. So I appreciate, not during the time, you don't appreciate losing or being ill, or losing all your money when it's happening. But once you get past it, you look back on it and say, there were some life lessons learned there.
You know, Dewey, we know about the record, the number of losses. How supportive, because nowadays they're not as much, how supportive were the fans of you guys back in the day with all the losing?
They were unbelievable. They would, no matter how bad we were playing, what our record was, they would still show up and be there at that stadium and bring out their very best and screaming and chanting the song, hey, hey, Tampa Bay, we know how to shine. And they were completely happy. Every parent loves a good child. If they got a bunch of good kids. But the greatest thing is sometimes parents got to love that kid who's not so good. And I think Tampa Bay, they being brand new parents, they loved us and they claimed us and they wanted us. And they said, they may not be the very best looking kid in town, but he is our kid. So we're going to love him. Everybody talked about us. We had those cream colored little jerseys, little slosh looking on a helmet. And everybody else around the league really cared for it, but those people loved it. They said, that's our boys. So they loved us, and they kept us inspired. Every Sunday they were there cheering us on. And I tell you what, I even today I still love the fans of Tampa.
So when you get to Tampa, obviously in college you played for the amazing Barry Switzer, and then you get to get into the NFL and you play for John McKay. What was he like? Just we hear the funny things he said, but what was he like as a coach? And was he as funny away from the media as he was with the team as he was away from with the media?
Coach McKay, little story there. He was not high on my list coming out of college. You know, he was coaching the USC Trojans, and we were the Oklahoma Sooners. You know, they were not on our plate of joyful get-togethers, and then we go out there to play them in California, and we tie them, and we thought we should have beat them. And I said, we're going to play for John McKay, and I knew it was going to be hot down there. How's this transition going to work? And everything about newness is an adjustment. And Coach McKay, yes, he has a personality. He has several personalities. One, he's serious and knowledgeable about football. He has an idea. He has a plan. Plan gets blown up. But there's another side of Coach McKay. I'm trying to work these guys, trying to work this town, this community, and keep us together. Stuff. So he does add quite a few one-liners in it that even made us players sometimes laugh. He actually said that. And but as it goes on and stuff, his heart, Coach McKay's heart was in that team. He wanted that team to succeed. I know one day I went to his office for a brief meeting. Opened the door, he's laying on his couch, his little feet up, like he needed counseling. He was completely tired out. And so he sets up and says, Dewey, you think we're going to turn it around? I say, shoot, yeah, Coach, it's going to work. And that was the behind-the-scenes part that people didn't get to see, is the fact that he was really concerned putting this energy into that team, into that community. But on the flip side of it, he coached the players on the field. He was intense on the field. And then when he needed to, he would hide some of the emotions and short whips, one-liners that tended to break the monotony. Okay, go somewhere else. I want to get out of this. And so I grew to really respect him as a coach and as a person.
You know, a lot of people don't realize this, but that first year you're with Tampa Bay in 1976, the team was in the AFC. It didn't go to the NFC till the second year. Was there any kind of an adjustment because it was all so new? It really didn't matter what conference you were in, who your rivals were. You were just trying to survive as a franchise.
We never knew the difference. We said, well, we're going to go out there and we got to play whoever shows up, because they're probably going to be better than us. Mm-hmm. And we had to. But you know what? One thing and stuff I did notice: a Steve Spurrier, a Dewey Selmon, a Richard Wood, Ricky Bell, Jimmy Giles. Once you have players of that ability mixed in with all the rest of the players in that community, you see the seeds. The seeds are there. Their performance lifts up the players around them. So they can take an average player, you see them performing, the average player becomes a good player. And when good players start playing hard, they have a chance. They have a chance of upsetting any team. And it's like that was the nucleus of us, you know, is the fact that we did have inside that atmosphere good material to build off of. And that propelled us to play every Sunday and to give it a good chance. And soon, once you turn it around, then belief moves in. You start believing you can win. And that's what happened.
Now, having a PhD in philosophy, was there a is there a philosophy that is your favorite philosophy that you give to other people that you learn from your experience as a football player and that experience in Tampa Bay?
Of course, I think everybody learned from that. I think even the fans learned from that, and the cheerleaders. I think the NFL learned from that. Everybody. We were something that the whole country was looking at. Even Johnny Carson made jokes about the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those jokes were very, very funny. And I think people will watch one of two things. They will watch the team that wins all the time, that's top of the heap, but they'll also always look back to see, what is that loser doing? How is he doing? Look at them, just getting beat up. So those two things attract. And for us, we attracted them for 2 years. But the other thing that makes people really get enthused is if the loser starts winning. Then there's attraction that goes beyond imagination. They say, how did they do this? The questions all start coming out, and the hopes start coming out, and you see a belief in player community that you can actually feel it. You can actually feel the love between players and fans and coaches, and they say, that's for real. Maybe throughout all of life, that's what we hope to live and be a part of.
Talking with Dewey Selmon, who was part of that inaugural Tampa Bay Buccaneers team back in 1976. Came from Oklahoma, where he was used to winning everything under Coach Switzer, and now he goes to Tampa and starts year one 0-14. And Dewey, in the second season, I got to think, all right, we're going to win a couple of these. And there you guys are going into week 13, and you're 0-12. Tell me about what it was like getting that first win. That had to be right up there with winning a national championship in Oklahoma.
It was truly amazing. And once you do something for the first time, you don't forget it. Like a lot of the games I've forgotten, the true nature of them, who was there. But our first win in New Orleans, I haven't forgot it. I remember Conrad Dobler, who was moved from St. Louis down there and was on that team, Manning and Hank Stram. And we go in there and we feel we had a chance. We have a chance to win this game. We always felt that against any team. But that afternoon, something very special happened. As a team, we felt coming out the second half, we can win this game. I think we can win it. And the idea of the past 2 years of thinking that we're going to lose it, for some reason we started thinking, let's hold on and see can we win it. And when it did happen, it was a moment of unbridled joy for us as players. And when you flew back to Tampa, there were so many fans like we had won the Super Bowl that was there to greet us. And so that's what one win can do. It's a change, and it's a release of energy and establishment of a new belief that all the hopes and trying had for once paid off in one game that we were able to say we won. And so I can sit there and say I won all the games at OU. I won all the next season at Tampa. That's the one game I remember the most, is that first win.
And the thing is, Dewey, if you go back to that year before the New Orleans game, Four of the previous 5 games, you all had been shut out. How did you continue to keep that type of positivity? Like, we can get this game when you're on a streak like this, where you're not winning and you're not scoring.
That was one thing we had to fight against, because the press and even own thinking, and it can happen inside coaching staffs too, that if your defense is playing pretty good and keeping you in the game, but your offense just can't score. So you start analyzing, and what phase of the game is making us lose? That's the first question. And the second question is, well, what player is not that good? And that could be the one that really tears up a team when you start internally pointing fingers. If you played better over there, we wouldn't have lost that game. And that's one thing that we did not do. It was, we were a team, and everybody was doing the best they could. And we chose not to point fingers. We chose not to separate the offense from the defense. And, there were some parts of the game and stuff that, we look back on, I watch the film, I chuckle at, Even our field goal kicking had its moments of humor. And I know we used to always get ourselves in the locker room and say, man, our offensive line gives those lookout blocks. They just scream and tell the quarterback, look out. And we would laugh about it. But when time came for us to play, let's go play. They're our team. They're with us.
You mentioned that John McKay was the coach of the team. He was also used to winning a whole bunch before he came to Tampa Bay. It had to be extremely difficult on him. How did he stay positive, and what was he like, if you can recall, after finally getting that win?
He was happy too. He was quite relieved. And we had to kind of rephrase ourselves as to how we handle the interview when someone's telling us that we won. But it did. That 2 years, Coach McKay, you see, he was not one of those young coaches like you see now in the NFL. He was pushing toward the end of his coaching career. Mm-hmm. He came there to do franchise. And I think behind the scenes, it took its toll. Winning takes a toll on the human emotion and body. Losing takes twice the amount of toll. Losing does. Because especially if you don't know how to take a loss and then put it away. If you carry it, then it's worse. For me, the first losses, I carried them. Like everybody did down there. We carried the losses. Basically, we hit the mid-season when you lost 8 games. You start carrying them, saying, God, what are we doing wrong? Everybody starts really trying to figure it out. We're really that bad? And so I think the key was that Coach McKay and his one-liners, and you have to, I finally, one night, listened to Johnny Carson tell a joke that the Buccaneers played something like luggage and lost. I thought it lasted. My wife she just rolled over. Y'all are bad. Y'all
Thanks, honey.
And so we started, when we approached him, we started covering up our badness with, hey, look, I love you guys. I love my team. We were talking about our teammates, our coaches, and the fans who were there, and that propelled us to that first win. And it's true. And I hope every football player, every athlete, And I don't care if you're non-athlete. If you just live inside this world, you're going to lose. I tell you that right now. You ain't going to win every day. But I will advise you to do this. Tomorrow morning, the sun will rise again. Don't reach back into yesterday and carry the luggage that you dropped back there. Try to build something new. And that's what that series of years did for us down there. And it made us see life in a different perspective. It really did.
I'm looking, Dewey, and we've talked about the losses, and I know getting that first win is so important, but the opposing team, they probably didn't want to be the team that lost to you. What was it like on the field with the opponents when you were going through this losing streak?
Nobody wanted to lose to the Buccaneers. It was we know that was a given, and a team coming in there and stuff, and they lost 20-some games. And you are going to, everybody's saying that you should win, you should beat them because they're just pitiful. And so nobody wanted to lose to us. If I was on the other side, I would not want to lose to us either. No way. I'm going to get beat by the Buccaneers, those little bitty lollipop guys running around. And so, no team wanted to lose to us. I think in the early part, people kind of overlooked this. Teams have kind of overlooked this and said, yeah, they're not that good. But I think at second year, as we kept on playing, I think teams kind of started saying, they're bad, but they're not that bad. Let's not be the one to lose to them. It's kind of like, you're not want to be the one that opens that kind of gossip with that team. And so yes, I'm quite sure every team really had in their mind, let's don't lose to those Bucs. I know I would have had that in my mind.
Well, I was just thinking, in dating terms, that sounds like your team just had a really great personality. But I want to ask you about your brother. I know he passed away many years ago, but I think he sort of gets lost in how amazing, not just a player, but as a person he was. Tell me about him and tell me what people don't know about him.
Well, Dewey Selmon is 11 months younger than I. 11 months. I was born in November. He was born the next year in October. During that time, when I was born, my family lived on a farm, the sharecroppers, that made a fair amount of money off the crops. Therefore, I was born in a hospital. But the year Leroy was born, there was no money. And Leroy was born right there in the front room of the house, a midwife. And from birth, Leroy was a little bit different. Leroy was gifted. He was gifted with physical ability, balance, a work ethic, and a love for people, all rolled up into one body. Anger was not a part of his nature. In fact, in college, as I was graduating, my dad asked me, he called me Will. Will, have you ever seen Leroy angry? I thought about it. And I told him, I said, Dad, I've been with Leroy all these years. No, I've never seen him angry. Not one time. That was a part of him. But when it comes to any task, be it football, school, work, wash a car, give money to a friend, he excelled at it. I'll never forget one night in Tampa, we were losing, had lost all those games. We were still losing. And 2 o'clock in the morning, I was doing training camp. I was rooming with Leroy. I heard him crying. He sits out of his bed and he's crying. So I say, of myself, well, why is he crying? Is it because we lost all these games? Or there's something wrong at home? Or is he not feeling well? I say, Leroy, what's going on? Why are you being so bothered this time of night? And he just sat there and he just said, dude, there's a lot of people hurt out there. A lot of kids are suffering, hurting. And I said, and I think, Leroy, we're in the midst of a training camp. Yes, there are people out there who need help and they hurt, but you can't heal everybody. Do and help the ones close to you. And that was his heart. That was the heart of Leroy Selmon. And you would say, oh, that's a soft heart. That's emotional. But no, you put him in a football uniform and put him on a field, he is so dominating. Not from the standpoint of anger or meanness, but from the standpoint of, I'm good. And he played it that way. And he was, in my opinion, the best defensive lineman that I ever saw, played with, or been around. But more than that and stuff, he had a heart that was unbelievable. Things he did. I could go on and on and on about the things he did off the field. And they were all equally impressive. And Leroy was just a very well balanced person created by God, and he just loved people. That was his whole life bag. He loved to do something. He's going to do it. He's going to do it the best of his ability. And I love that guy. And the amazing thing about it and stuff, you see, when I was in Tampa with Leroy playing, my energy level for the game was high. But when I got traded to San Diego, without being around Leroy, that same level of energy wasn't there. So that's what he brought to the game.
Is there something from Leroy that you still carry with you? Is that even though he's not with us here on earth spiritually, or something that you carry with him and you're reminded of him every day?
My gosh, yes. Every day you think it. In fact, it's amazing you would say that when just by chance, 3 days ago, I would listen to his Oklahoma Hall of Fame acceptance speech. And things he said. By being that close at birth, that put us in the same grade. So we grew up like twins. We were in the same classes. We stayed in the same dorm room at OU. We roomed together at the Buccaneers when we traveled. And so when the funny thing about, we first got to OU, we went to the chow line, separate intervals. And we came and we sat down beside each other and we started looking at each other, and we had exactly the same food. And that's how mindset that we were, that Leroy had. They talk about, when they say Selmon, they talk about Lucius, Leroy, and myself. Lucius was the strongest by far. Physically, he was strong. Leroy was bigger, most balanced of us three. He was definitely the best. my strength and my durability came from those two. They lifted my game, and so I owe a lot to them. Love Leroy, and he had a way of saying, "I love you, dude." That's him.
You mentioned that you get traded to the Chargers, and now you're separated from your brother. I mean, what was that experience like in San Diego? I mean, the Chargers were a playoff team, but you're not there with your brother after all those years. What was that like?
It was totally different. The main thing, though, I look at it, I love the Chargers when I got there. It was a trade that was beneficial for Dewey Selmon from the standpoint of football. Tom Bass left Tampa to go there as a defensive coordinator, and I loved Tom. Coach Cariel was great. Fouts was there. Doug Muncie, Louis Kelcher was there, and I love that team. It was an older team, and the approach to football was a little bit different. But I did miss the relationship, the constant relationship with Leroy. That was not there, and that was a negative. And you got to understand, see, I was the player rep in Tampa for all those years. So I got to see the game very close inside. And sometimes I think as a rep, I saw too much. And it made me think about the game. Like, this is a game, but it has side effects. And people are not talking about these side effects that are for real. And I saw it. And when I left Tampa that last season, after the sixth season, I packed up everything and brought it back to Oklahoma. And Leroy said, "Why are you taking everything back?" I said, "Leroy, I won't be back in Tampa. They're going to trade me." I said, "What do you mean? I won't be back. I know too much. And my time here is over." And when the season ended that year, about a month later, Leroy did call me. He said, "Dude, I heard there's rumor there that some talks going on about it, that you're going to be traded." And I said, "Well, I was pretty much expecting that." I said, we're talking about Minnesota or Green Bay to the icebox?" So he said, "No, San Diego." I said, "Oh, well, that's not bad." But that was the motif of it. So if you look at it and stuff, the whole ramps to football, it was Leroy who called me to invite me to Tampa. It was Leroy who called me and said, "You may be leaving Tampa." Leroy was always a brother who loved me without reproach. He was there, and Leroy was there for everybody around him. And that was Leroy Selmon. And I think even now that's still him.
Well, Dewey, that's perfect coming from a man with a PhD in philosophy. So if I said that, they'd go, "What's this guy saying?" But I want to go up a little bit. I know that Tampa Bay got better, obviously, a couple years after these 1976 season. But the basis of our show is we go back and look through old Sports Illustrated and then talk about in 50 years with wonderful people such as yourself. Well, I think in 1979, you made the cover of Sports Illustrated. How did that feel, and what was that like to be on there?
It was shocking. that was truly unexpected. It was the game we played against the Rams. That was it McCutcheon?
Yeah.
I guess tackling, and it was truly unexpected and stuff. It was a game and stuff that we were a close-knit unit at that time. We were close. Buccaneer unit, we had arrived. The idea of team, the idea of team spirit, of identity, of loving each other, of playing. Self had disappeared on that team, and we were the Buccaneers. And I was, again, stuff you think about that cover that, which I would put on and stuff for that tackle. You know, I was thinking so many players on that team that was, I think, was more deserving, that had careers, that had played, that probably should have been on that cover before I was. But I think it was just the position of the tackle, the location of the photographer, and the selection of the Sports Illustrated people. So I leave that all to them. But I would say one thing about it. I think it goes further than just that cover picture. It reflects the spirit and the achievements of all the players who were on that team, who had been there, had suffered the same stuff I went through, and finally arrived. You know, and so, and we built it all together. We built it together. That we, and it was truly amazing. That one season and stuff, when you look back at it, the players, the teams we played against, sports comes and sports goes. But then there are some things you don't forget. It does teach you some things you don't forget. And that year, I never forgot it. It was fantastic. It was fun. It was a blessed season. It was something bigger than yourself. You're a part of something that's just bigger than you, and you just happen for the moment to be a part of it.
You know, we mentioned earlier you earned a PhD in philosophy, Dewey. And I was going to ask you what drew you to that field, but just talking to you for the last 40 minutes, I can just see how your mind works, but I can also see how that has served you well. It's certainly I'm assuming your entire life, but in the football world as well. Not many people could take the attitude that you have, losing your first 14 games, you're losing the next 12 the next season, losing your brother at such a young age. How has the world of philosophy helped shape your life in the many years?
I want everybody listening to this interview, I want to understand. Here's what I would tell everybody. Football and all sports teaches you so much. It really does. It teaches you how to get up in the morning and go to work. It teaches you that you're going to balance the idea of winning and losing, that both are going to come to you, no matter what person we are, race, color, creed, country, and I guess it's left up to us, though, what we do with those, but with both spectrums. What do you do inside both arenas when you're winning and when you're losing? When you're at the top or when you're on the bottom? What do you do? What do you do when you finally realize maybe you're not perfect? You're not a perfect person. What do you realize when you made a mistake? What do you do when you realize that you have to get up? You got to get up. You got to get up and get better. That there's a world, and once you separate it, gosh, people, I think it's time for a whole world. We got to see that there's a world bigger than what we see. What we see is not it. It's okay what we see, but there's a belief. This other world requires a belief that goes beyond just hoping. You got to feel it. You got to see it and know that it's there and that it's the one that lives. Like, to see Dewey Selmon in the flesh was fantastic. You're holding, you're touching. But you can still see him. You can still feel him. You're still touching. He still comes back even today. In this one interview, he shows up. That we are not just 70-year-old finite creatures upon some planet that circles around in space. We're more than that. So much more. Mm-hmm. I want people to take the shortcomings off and look at the long term. See, I'm older now. I'm older. I can call it now. I'm 73. I don't got to wait. Say I'm 18 and I'm hoping. No. I can look back and call it straight up. There is a tomorrow, and it stretches into eternity. It is out there. But it's also right here with us right now. And so I hope we all take the blinders off and see how good it is. If you have a great life today, that's how good it is. If your life is not good today, pray. Tomorrow will be better.
It's trivia time. Past our prime, but still in our prime. Questions rolling like a tumbleweed.
So you get drafted by the Buccaneers. You go for your first press conference or wherever it is, and you see the uniforms you're going to wear that year. What was your initial thoughts when you saw those creamsicle uniforms?
Well, you have these ideas in your head of a uniform that paints the picture of how good you are. Like Sooner red OU on the helmet, that was good. Nebraska comes out, Big Ed, that's good. Trojan comes out, that's good. You go to the NFL, Raiders, that looks good. You know, silver and black and silver, or Cowboys comes out, and Steelers comes out, their uniforms look good, and wow, someone walks out, and here's your uniform, crimson cream. I said, I used to buy those at the ice cream store and eat them. Now you're asking me to wear it? Those push-ups deal, they were crimson and cream, about like them jerseys. So, it took a while for us to adjust to that. When you see it all around the stadium and everybody else wearing it, it don't look as bad. In fact, it got to where you kind of liked it. And then you grew to love it. And in fact, I have those jerseys and colors. They occupy the most front possession of my closet right now. That color, and I love the color. It's a part of you, so I love it. I like it.
So here's my trivia question to you then. True or false? The original color scheme for the Buccaneers was going to be orange and blue, but they thought it looked too much like the Florida Gators and then went to the orange with red.
Is that true or false?
Yeah, true or false?
True.
No, it's false, but it's a little bit of a trick question. The original colors were going to be orange and green, but they thought they looked too much like the Miami Hurricanes, so they went to, the orange with a little bit of red with it. So yeah.
Dewey, this interview with you has been absolutely outstanding, just outstanding. You are the way you speak and the way you carry yourself, just so intelligent, and the way it's incredible to listen to. But being a philosophy guy, how does that work on the field when it comes to trash talking? I know I've taken a wide turn here, but it seems like you being so intelligent, you would get people more confused if you're talking about Socrates on the field.
That would. Yeah. I don't know. I never did a whole lot of trash talking. I only did trash talking one time out of defense of Leroy. Little fidget wide receiver come in and cut his legs out. And I said, Leroy's going to get mad now. He's going to jump up. He's going to agree with that guy and tell him something. So he gets up and he looks at me and he says, boy, dude, people are playing dirty. I said, that's all you're going to say? I'll be right back. So I find out the receiver and I jump all over him. I said, do that again, I'll break you. But no, I just think there's There's time. We're talking about time. And there are times in our lives for everything. Time to be a winner like OU, time to be a loser like in Tampa, time to win again, time to accept what's given, you know. And in both scenarios, OU and Tampa, I was given a lot. The color at OU was great. The color at Tampa was fantastic. Both sets of fans were good. And the main thing is that both arenas, both settings were something I did not create. I was just a part of it. And I hope all the other players who play at both places and every school understand it and accept it for what it is. Accept it for what it is because it don't last forever. The memory can last forever. Life moves on. You know, we can't. We have to move. We got to move forward, and we're all headed to a journey somewhere, and that somewhere has got to be good.
You know, Dewey, we've had a lot of guests on the show. Some are fun, some are impressive, some are thoughtful. And then every once in a while, you get one that's fun, thoughtful, and impressive. And you're one of those. It's just been a complete privilege to get to know you and to talk to you today and relive those wonderful first couple seasons in Tampa Bay when you guys were struggling as a team, but coming together as young men. And you can see the impact it had on you guys back then. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us today.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for considering me and having me on. And I just say shout out to all the Buccaneers players, Steve Spurrier, to every one of them, all of them. We love you. Thank y'all so much.
Leroy Selmon's older brother, Dewey Selmon, on the Past Our Prime podcast. Thank you, Dewey. Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. Mark Humphreys is the CEO of ThePit.com and an expert in the field of collectibles. And Mark, one of the great college football coaches of all time, Steve Spurrier on the cover from his playing days as quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, well, this was Spurrier's second Sports Illustrated cover, and his first was with the 49ers back in 1972. He was the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft in 1967 out of the University of Florida, where he won the Heisman Trophy. But apparently he was disappointed with San Francisco because they didn't give him a chance to start and had a long timeline for him with John Brody, their starting quarterback. So in 9 years with the 49ers, he did start some games when Brody was injured or as a spot starter, and he actually had a winning record by a whisker. He had 13 wins, 12 losses, and 1 tie with the 49ers. And it might have been good to stop there because when he joined the expansion Tampa Bay Buccaneers with this, and Sports Illustrated heralded the Tampa Bay joining the league with the Buccaneers Come Aboard, he proceeded to start 12 of the 14 games for the Buccaneers, who lost every game that season. So Spurrier was 0-12, and he turned his starting quarterback record in the NFL from 13-12-1 to 13-24-1. And those were that was the final act of his NFL playing career. So this cover would be treasured by Tampa Bay fans who are taking an ironic look at the beginning of their franchise. I guess in some ways it's better to go 0-14 than 1-13. But be that as it may, only one of these has been graded by CGC. And I haven't seen any market activity around this issue. In terms of autographed copies, there's one on eBay for $75. It doesn't even have a letter of authenticity, so buyer beware on that. Obviously, Spurrier went on to a great career as a coach. He's the only coach who is the winningest coach for 2 SEC schools, Florida and South Carolina. But we haven't seen much interest by collectors in great coaches. I picked up a Bear Bryant first cover from 1966 in a mid-grade for $100. And of course, Bryant won many national championships, whereas Spurrier won only a single national championship in 1996 with Florida. So this is an interesting curiosity. This Sports Illustrated with Spurrier in 1976, but there is very limited collector interest at this point.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com. Part 2 of a 3-part series here on Roger Kahn's book, The Grand Old Game. And this piece juxtaposes the harsh economic reality of minor league baseball against the mythic stature of a major league legend like Stan Musial, a man who hadn't played in 13 years, but is still drawing huge crowds wherever he goes, compared to like the Pittsfield Brewers, who are getting anywhere between 110 and 350 fans a night. So you can see the big difference between minor league ball and major league attractions. And, you know, guys like Stan Musial just were such a fabric of baseball for so long. When you think Cardinals baseball, even 50 years later, and now 65 since he last played, you'd have a lot of people that still say that Stan Musial is the face of the Cardinals. You'd probably have a lot of people that said that about Al Kaline. There were certain guys that just were emblematic of a time and an era in their team's organization.
But Musial wasn't flashy, which they sort of talked about. That he wasn't the guy that he brought everyone to the game because of talent, but he didn't keep a lot of people because he wasn't the flashiest, didn't talk very much.
No.
You know what I love about this article? But there's a part where he's talking about the salaries of players in 1975. And I don't know if you paid attention to this part, but do you know who the highest paid player was in 1975?
Yeah. Go ahead, tell us.
Dick Allen, who made $250,000 for the year. Hank Aaron was second at $240,000. What is it? Well, what do players make now? They make that in like a game. That's like a per.
But
game.
I wonder back in 1976 what that equates to nowadays. So 50 years making $250,000. What would his salary be?
I don't think it would be 30.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
What's Tucker? $60 million a year, but it was.
But he's earning that money.
It was a lot of money, no question about that. Journeyman guys were making around 40 to 50 grand back then. That's their meal money now. Bill, what do they say about Leo the Lip DeRocher?
Well, this is Artie Wilson. He's a former Negro League shortstop. He said Leo DeRocher had the greatest tricks. He'd carry a rubber cigar with him, and he didn't smoke, and he'd come up to some rookie and say, "Hey, give me your matches." 20 minutes later, he'd be asking the kid what was he doing at the Thunderbird Club last night. The rookie would think, how the heck did Leo know he'd been out drinking? Leo would look at the matches. That was how. But the rookies caught on. So after a while, they didn't give him matches. They gave him lighters. So DeRocher didn't know what they had been doing the night before.
Leo the Lip, private eye. Jerry Royce was on our show a couple years ago and had a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
When it came to Leo DeRocher.
Sure tied in that era with DeRocher, didn't he? Because we didn't know anybody that had played with him, and Royce was one of the last that we knew.
That was shocking. Shocking to see that he came up and that was his manager in Houston.
Yep.
More baseball. What's the pox on the Sox after their dramatic 1975 World Series appearance, highlighted by Carlton Fisk's Game 6 home run off the foul pole? The Red Sox have completely collapsed in 1976. They had a 10-game losing streak. They're 15 and a half games behind the first place Yankees. They fired their manager, Darryl Johnson out, Don Zimmer in. So Carl Yastrzemski says that it's a loss of pride, attitude, and character. All right, so that's always a good thing.
And didn't Bill Lee not like Don Zimmer? Didn't he call him an idiot?
Oh, he was.
Remember Bill Lee just went off on Don Zimmer.
Yeah, I think he said he was a gambling,
gambling drunk or whatever.
Right. It was not good. Despite the turmoil, teams showed flickers of resilience, including a gritty 2-1 win over the Angels.
Yes.
I just wanted to throw in an Angels loss from 50 years ago for you, Billy.
There wasn't very many of them, so you found one of them. Good job.
Yep, I found one.
Just one.
Cincinnati opens up baseball's largest lead. They're up 13 and a half games thanks to George Foster, looking like an MVP candidate. He's having a breakout season. And the Dodgers struggles with Walter Alston at the helm, but he's being kind of shown the door here a little bit.
Yeah, the fans want Walter Alston out. He'd been there, 20 plus years? But the thing is, they better figure out what they're going to do, because the Pirates are interested in Alston's heir apparent third base coach Tommy Lasorda. So I think we know what the Dodgers did.
Just think, he could have bled Pirates black and gold.
Exactly. But you can't, when you say you bleed Dodger blue, you can't go out and do, black and gold.
Could you imagine if Tommy Lasorda had left for Pittsburgh, how that just would have changed the history of the Dodgers.
But do you think he would have taken the job, Scott? Do you think, with Walter Alston being at the end of his career, sort of like Paul, remember Mitch Kupchak and Jerry West said, Jerry said, don't leave, I'm going to be retiring soon? Don't you think it sort of would have been the same thing? Alston said, I'm getting out of here in a year.
The O'Malleys would have to have said, look, he's going to coach one more year and then it's your job. But if they say, you're going to keep him for 2 or 3 years, no, you take the Pittsburgh job.
I mean, this is going to be Alston's final season, so probably in the next issue or so, that announcement's going to come. But I'm sure Tommy was like, "Hello, I'm not." It's tough for me to turn down. Pittsburgh was good.
They were good. That was a Stargell and
so
Tavares and
John Candelaria, right, Bill?
That's right. He threw a no-hitter against the Dodgers. So Tommy sort of watched that and thought, I can manage that guy. I just thought it was interesting. We've talked about this no-hitter before. But it was Pittsburgh's first no-hitter at home in 69 years. So 1907 was the last time they had a no-hitter thrown at home.
Do you remember where you were this week when Mark Fidrich beat the Twins?
You didn't beat the Twins.
Record.
Well, yeah, you got me in that the other week. This time I can tell you. So he beats the Indians, 2-1, thanks to Willie Horton, pinch hit homer in the ninth. So he's now 13-4 on the year. So I can tell you officially
That's
what
what I said.
Yes, Scott did say that. And I don't like the fact he's beating up Indians.
Yes, well,
right?
Well, you know what?
I don't like that.
It was actually a 4-3 win, and he goes to 13-4. But there's another little thing where they talk about the Indians' Dennis Eckersley, who lost a bunch of 2-1 decisions to the Tigers and Rangers. And I love the funny part of this where he says, since returning from the bullpen, Eckersley has a 1.06 ERA and 45 strikeouts in 34 innings. So he was back to being a starter because, God forbid, you banish him to the bullpen. Nothing good will come of that.
Someone the other day on social media, they were talking about Eckersley, and they were like, "Oh, well, after being a failed starter," and
He didn't fail.
that's not true.
No.
Dennis Eckersley was a very, very good starting pitcher. Then his career started to decline, and La Russa was like, "You know what? Instead of you giving me 9, give me 1."
Didn't he have over 100 wins as a starter?
150.
Yeah, and I knew he no-hit the Angels in 77. I remember that. Yeah, the act was good.
I think his stuff played both in the bullpen as a starter. I mean, look at John Smoltz. Smoltz was a great starter, but when they put him in the bullpen as a closer, he was lights out too.
Yep.
Come down the stretch they come.
Uneasy rise of a Brooklyn star. Rodney Parker, an unofficial self-appointed scout and mentor in Brooklyn playgrounds, has built an outsized reputation helping talented but vulnerable young basketball players. Like 14-year-old phenom Albert King, considered generationally talented, he's become Parker's latest obsession, with Parker aggressively pushing him towards a small, wealthy Eastern prep school he believes would shield Albert from the destructive forces of the city. But Billy, maybe it was just all too much for the 14-year-old King.
Albert King, I think, was just overexposed. This is a 14-year-old kid. All that pressure, taking him out. They wanted to take him out of his home, basically, move him away, get him in a school he didn't want to go to. And if you read the article, he starts out as a really nice young guy. You know, he's excited. He wants to play. He's obviously got skills out the roof. By the end of the article, he's angry. He's mad. Don't talk to me. I don't want to see anybody. I just sort of felt bad for him at the end of the article.
Yeah. I'm assuming that this was like the time where, these kids just want to play basketball.
Yes.
Now they know. Now it's all about, McDonald's, and playing at these, they get recruited to go to the top high schools. But back then they were like, screw this, I want to be with my buddies and playing. Yep. And look, he was probably trying to get him away from his buddies, because
that's what he said. He said it. Yeah. There's only two ways you go in the places where he lived. You either go to the gangs or you play basketball. That you would meet somebody and they'd say, "Oh, I'm playing basketball. Oh, I'm running in a gang." So you had two choices, and the Parker knew that there was an issue there, and he wanted to get him out. So he wasn't doing it to hurt the kid, but I just think it was a lot for a 14-year-old, as it would even be nowadays, I would think.
And of course, Albert King went on to have a good NBA career. I think he played like 9 or 10 years in the NBA.
Years.
But he will always be more known, and this probably doesn't go over well, but he's the younger brother of Bernard King, who went on to have a Hall of Fame basketball career.
Yep. And at that point in time, Albert King was overshadowing his brother, even though his brother was in Tennessee. That right. Albert King was supposed to be, I think you said it, Scott, he's supposed to be the LeBron before LeBron. And unfortunately, that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, especially back in '76.
Mark, tell us about your John cock.
Hey, that's kind of personal. I don't think I want to talk about it. By the way, he was my favorite name for a racer, Gordon Johncock, okay? He wins.
We know.
Yeah. He should have gone to South Carolina, been a Gamecock. But anyway, he wins this rain-shortened Trenton Times Auto Classic. Now, the race could have been completed if they started it on time, but CBS requested a delay to the race, which allowed the rain to shorten it. Why? Because Ronald Reagan was arriving at the Republican National Convention. And that would be the convention he gets nominated, and it would eventually become president for 2 terms.
No. He did not become president until 1980, right?
Oh, my God. Why am I thinking this is 1980? You're right.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on here?
I time traveled. So in 76, he went to the Republican convention and was considered a genuine threat to Gerald Ford. But Ford just barely got the nomination.
Yes.
And then he lost to Jimmy Carter. So Ford is the only president to not have ever been elected to office. But Reagan, yes, then 4 years. So when Reagan lost in 76, everyone thought, okay, that's it. He got his shot. But in 80, he came back and got the nomination. So enough of my time traveling. It's no longer 1980. I'm back in 1976 now.
But it shows you where I was, Mark. I was nodding in agreement. Oh, yeah, kid became president. And Scott had to point out, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, my bad.
From John Cock to Ray Kroc.
And I used to have a friend, his name was Ken Glasscock. So we're going Cox and Crocs, and we're going down it all.
Get your mind off
But in August of 76, McDonald's and the Padres owner purchased the San Diego Mariners for their final WHA season in 1976 for 77. That team never drew well, so Kroc sold that team. By 1977, there was no more San Diego Mariners hockey. So one thing that Kroc couldn't turn into $1 billion.
Right.
Bunch of Kroc. That's all I can say.
I'm just fascinated with how the exhibition games were played back in the day, how the star players would play long periods of the game. Yeah. And here I read that exhausted Jets, mind you, this is an exhibition game, they had to play Oakland 2 days after being defeated by the Giants.
Wow. And people complain about Sunday to Thursday.
Right? They lose to the Giants, on Sunday, and on Tuesday they lose to the Raiders 41-17. So that just cracks me up.
Faces in the crowd.
This is not the first time anyone said this to you, Bill. Bill Diddle.
Yeah, quit your diddling, Bill. Bill Diddle's 92 years old. He's a golf course designer, but at 92, he scored his 6th hole-in-one by acing the 186-yard 4th hole at the Woodland Country Club course. But Diddle is known for designing golf courses. He designed the golf course at the Northwood Club in Dallas, Texas, which was the site of the 1952 U.S. Open. Not bad for a diddler.
No. Mark, you got one? Was it Brad Arnsberg?
Yeah, that's right, from Medford, Oregon. He sparks his Little League team to an 18-0 record. The 12-year-old kid batted .840. Think about that. That means he got on base 8 to 9 times every 10 at bats. He had 17 homers. Okay, I mean that means he averaged a homer a game. Okay, drove in 58 runs. So normally you go, hey, it's great. A Little League kid, a lot of people dominate in Little League and never make it to the show. But Brad makes it to the show. I know. He was a pitching coach in baseball for a long time with the Expos and the Marlins and the Blue Jays. So he had a long career. He's 62 years old now. But his major league career, he went 9-6. So he only won 9 games in his major league career, had 100 strikeouts. Played for the Yankees, the Rangers, the Indians, but a long career as a coach. It's great to see that someone that had the success in Little League then makes it in the pros and then can make a career out of baseball.
Mm-hmm. 7 years later, he's the first-round pick, 9th overall by the Yankees. His best season was 1990. 62 innings, he goes 6-1 with a 2.15 ERA and 5 saves. And get this, guys, one of those saves was win number 300 for Nolan Ryan.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
There you go.
That's your career.
Ryan went 7 2/3 innings in that game and threw 146 pitches.
Nowadays, he's out in 3.
From the locker room to your living room, it's time.
All right, 19th hole.
For the 19th hole.
This guy was not a fan of our guest, Dwight Stones.
Yeah, he wasn't. I don't know what's wrong with the dude. But anyway, Daniel G. Wayne from Pelham, New York says, I believe a grave injustice has been done to U.S. high jumper Dwight Stones. How could the judges have neglected to reward adequately the remarkable efforts of this outstanding athlete? ? Think of it. Stones made a jump of 7.3 with his foot in his mouth, yet he earned only a bronze medal. Outrageous.
Yeah, the old, some people did not appreciate Dwight's candor,
right?
It's so funny because us guys as producers, you're dying for a Dwight Stones,
Right.
You want someone that's actually going to say something.
Yep.
But the fans oftentimes get put off by that kind of stuff. Bill.
Okay, this is from E. Wayne Botkins. I've got 2 here. They're on the same thing. After reading your article on women weightlifters, I have come to the conclusion that you've gotten pretty desperate for stories. Of all things, I realize that women may want to be equal, but lifting weights? Come on. Women's lib is going too darn far. However, I'm thankful for your article in one respect. I never laughed harder. That's Wayne Botkins. Joe McDonald came right back and said, I assume this is only the beginning of a series of stories about women engaging in unladylike sports such as football, boxing, wrestling, hockey, karate, judo, and kung fu. That's from Joe McDonald. And then it's followed up 10 days ago. Joe McDonald got his ass kicked by Ronda Rousey. But, I cannot confirm or deny if that's true.
Right. I got one from Karen Taylor, Danville, Virginia. She writes, I thought the least I could do for reader Jim McCone and other angry Americans who saw fit to cheer for Yugoslavia, Canada, or Mexico instead of the American team, North Carolina basketball team, was send them a sympathy note. So here it is. It was a shame they wouldn't cheer for the U.S. team, which was obviously the best one there, led by our guest from 2 weeks ago, Mitch Kupchak. Got revenge or got the U.S. back on top, winning gold after that 1972 debacle, and took home the gold. I think his dad still has that gold medal in the trunk of the car.
He does. He keeps driving through the Canadian border just every day. Got gold again. A good story.
That's it for this week's show. A big thank you to Dewey Selmon for sharing his story from Oklahoma to that very resilient 1976 Bucs expansion team. For Bill, for Mark, I'm Scott, and we are past our prime.
Yes, we are.